Hello and welcome to the 14-day AI challenge where you stop guessing and you start prompting. I'm your host, Engineer Victory. Today is day 10 of the 14-day practical AI challenge. We've been through day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and today we are at day 10. We're looking at something quite interesting. Today, let's get right into it. So, our topic for today is building a budget, expense, and planning with AI. So budget, expense, and planning with AI, right? So how can you use AI for budgeting and expense planning, right? What's our theme for today? Our theme for today is control without stress, right? Making sure you can control that without stress. Okay, let's move on. So why do budgets fail? Why do budgets fail? Why do budgets fail? Why do most budgets and expense planning fail? Let's look at it. We have guessing instead of tracking. Some people, they go about budgeting, they establish a system. Maybe they work with Excel, maybe they work with Google Sheets, or maybe they're using a tracking app, a financial app, but they don't track their finances. Now that's wrong. You see, today we are going to build a system with AI in order for you to track your finances and track your budget and budget basically. But you need to build a habit to be able to track it manually using the system which you're going to get with AI. Now, AI cannot track your spending habits, right? Even if you're using Excel, even if you're using an app, no matter what you're using, AI cannot track your spending habits. AI cannot come and then write, oh, you bought maybe a biscuit today, or you took a taxi and the taxi costs so and so amount. AI is not going to come and jot that down. You should have an internal system where you note down daily expenses, right? So that you can be able to track how much you spend on a daily. We have ignoring small recurring expenses. Some people ignore small recurring expenses. For example, let's say from time to time they give maybe a small amount to a young child around, maybe their youngest child, or maybe a younger brother, or maybe just these small expenses which we tend to ignore from time to time. Let's say if you're working with dollars, maybe from time to time you can give a child $1, or maybe from time to time you can spend $1 maybe to get something. And these little expenses, which some people tend to ignore them, that's very wrong, because over time they scale up, and what was initially $1, or what was $1, $2 here, $3 here, maybe over a period of a week or over a period of 4 weeks, could be looking at $100, or could be looking at maybe $120, or a huge amount which can affect your budgeting and your tracking and your financial plan, right? So you must be able to account for those things. Don't ignore them, right? Another reason why budgets fail is no emergency buffer. We know we are living in a world which is quite unpredictable. We plan, yes, we do the best we can, but sometimes things just come up that we cannot control. Emergencies could come up, unforeseen events could come up, maybe something can happen and you're forced to spend more money than you initially had planned to, right? You should have an emergency buffer. You should have an emergency buffer. You should build your financial management or your financial budget with that in mind, right? There should be an emergency buffer so that should in case something unexpected or major happens, you should still be able to do what you were supposed to do. You should be able to continue your financial plan, without receiving a massive shock, right? It serves as a shock absorber to be able to absorb the shock of the unforeseen event or the emergency spending or whatsoever happened that took you out of the amount of money which you're supposed to spend, or made you to kind of like go beyond that. The next thing is forgetting irregular or annual expenses, right? Now there are some things which people do not account for when they are doing budgeting: irregular or annual expenses. For example, maybe every year you pay a particular amount of money for a particular service, or a particular amount of money for a particular thing, or maybe you are paying for a particular service but the time frame at which you pay is not dependent on you, right? So maybe the time frame could be maybe dependent on how many people you have in the house. Maybe it could be dependent on the weather. It could be dependent on many factors, right? Let's look at the example. Maybe let's say you buy a particular product in bulk. Maybe you buy rice, for example, in bulk, and sometimes you finish a kilogram of rice in one day. Other times, well, a kilogram is not in bulk. Let's say 25 kilograms and above, right? Let's say you buy that in bulk from time to time, and your normal time to finish a 25 kilogram of rice, right, in your normal setting, let's say it's 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks you finish 25 kilograms of rice. But sometimes there could be things that could happen where instead of finishing that in 3 weeks, that kilogram of rice could extend to maybe 5 weeks, or you could maybe finish in less than maybe a week or two, or a week and a half, right? And those are irregular expenses that come up recurrently. You should be able to know how to account for them in a way that would not affect your financial tracking and your financial planning, right? We have the next point: budgeting without a clear goal. People budget, many people budget, but they don't have a clear goal. What's your goal of budgeting? Are you trying to save more money? Are you trying to be to pay off a debt? Are you trying to account for all the money which you're spending? Basically, we budget for a reason. Don't just budget because you want to budget, right? Money is coming in. It's true you should budget, it's true you should plan for it, but there should also be a reason behind it. That reason is going to motivate you and drive you towards budgeting, even when you don't feel like it, even when you may be discouraged, or even when whatever happens, right? Yeah. And then finally, we have not reviewing and adjusting your budget. A budget should be basically a breathing system that breathes and expands with time, because we are not the same. We expand with time, we change with time as our levels change, as we grow and we increase, as we change seasons, our spending habits change, our needs change, our expenses change, right? Our income changes, and as a result, we should be able to adjust our budget so that they can adequately reflect these changes that are currently happening around us, right? Don't be in a place where you're changing levels, your situation is changing, and yet your budget is still the same, right? If maybe before you were earning less and now you're earning more, your budget should definitely change. Your budget should change, to reflect that change, right? But it should still, change with respect to the overall goal. Don't change and you start spending more money now because you're earning more, right? That's foolish. It's wrong. It's not the right thing to do. If you're earning more, the first thing to do is to keep on working towards your goal, and then the things which you can expand on savings, you can expand on investment, you expand on those ones, right? Keep your core, your necessary expenses, your necessary payments and all of those things, keep them the same. Don't start spending so much, right? And you're getting things which you don't really need because your income has increased. That's a recipe for disaster down the road, right? So these are just some habits which we have to be aware of when it comes to budgeting. Let's look at the budgeting framework. Now, this framework contains things which you have to know as budgeting is concerned. So we have the money framework. We have M, which talks about the monthly income; O, which talks about obligations; N, which talks about necessary expenses; and E, which stands for extra. It's true why it's not covered yet, but let's just say it's money. Money or moan, whatever, right? So what is your monthly income, right? On a monthly basis, how much money comes in to you? Let's say you have a side hustle, you're working a 9 to 5, you have maybe contributions, or you have money coming from this place or from that place. You should be able to map out your monthly income, how much comes into you on a monthly basis, right? Now, you may also be getting money, but not on a monthly basis. You may be getting money maybe on a weekly basis, or you may be getting money on an annual basis, or maybe on a bi-monthly basis. You should be able to account for those amounts of money basically in this income sheet, right? Kind of like make a sheet, right? Bring a sheet, put monthly income or regular income. How much comes into you on a monthly basis? What are all your streams of income? You should be able to list them. Like, how frequently do you get money from each stream of income, right? Is this stream of income depending on you? You should be able to map out those things and understand where you get money from. Secondly, you need to understand your obligations. What are your financial obligations? Your financial obligations could be, for example, you're a parent, and as a result, you're supposed to feed your children, you're supposed to clothe them, you're supposed to do all these things for them, right? Those are obligations. It could also be that you have a debt, which maybe, for example, school debt for a loan which you took for school, or maybe for a car payment, or maybe for a mortgage which you're trying to repay. So those are financial obligations. You should look at the financial obligations which you have around you, things which you must spend money on, irrespective of what happens, irrespective of the weather, irrespective of the season, things which you must put money on, which you must put money to settle. Those are your financial obligations, right? Then we are going to look at the necessary expenses. What are the expenses that are around you that are not in, that cannot be termed as obligations, but they are termed as necessary, right? So look at the expenses that you have on a day-to-day that are not obligations, but they are necessary. So for example, you can look at maybe the way you spend on groceries. It's a necessary expense, right? You can look at the way you spend on, for example, utilities. It's an obligation, right? It's not really a necessary expense, it's more of an obligation. You can look at the way you spend on groceries. You can look at the way you spend on transportation. Transportation is necessary. You can look at the way you spend on fuel. Maybe if you're using generator, maybe depending on your situation, if you're living in a place where you have to kind of get fuel in order to be able to get constant electricity supply. Transportation, those are things which you have to consider. Maybe clothing, that's necessary. It's not so much obligated, but it's necessary. So you need to be able to map out all the expenses, the recurring expenses in your life, in your lifestyle, which are necessary but not obligated or not obligatory. And then finally, you look at the extra spending, so extra expenses, right? What are your extra expenses? Things which you would like to do, things which you're already doing, right? Those are the extra expenses. These ones are not obligatory, these ones are not necessary, these ones you can definitely do without them, but they are like the nice add-ons which you would like to have. Maybe, for example, from time to time you would like to go out and eat at a restaurant. Now that's an extra spending. Maybe from time to time you like to go out on a date with your wife or with your husband. That's an extra spending, right? Or maybe from time to time you like to go on a vacation, or maybe you like to treat yourself to a manicure, to a pedicure, right? Those kinds of things, map them all out and then have them, because these things are going to be necessary as we are moving forward to looking at the framework we are going to use in actually building our budgeting and expense planning with AI. Let's look at our framework. Our framework is the CLARE framework for today. That's the framework we are considering, CLARE framework. So the first thing is C. C is the context. We've been speaking about context from the first day of this AI challenge, and even today on the 10th day we are still speaking about context because it's very important, right? So what is your financial situation right now? Income, expenses, debt, location, basically those kinds of things. And that is why what we just did in the previous stage is important, right? It's necessary for the context part of your prompts, so that you should be able to paint the picture of where you are currently financially. What's your current financial situation? Then we look at the limits, right? What are the real constraints, habits, emergency, inflation, family support, student life? So what are the constraints or the limits that are associated with your financial life, with your budgeting, right? Or things that could inhibit or affect your budgeting in one way or another. So the examples we have here are habits. What are the habits you have that could maybe inhibit or have, or maybe influence your budgeting in one way? Emergencies, inflation. Inflation is a limit because, or let's say for example you're earning $1,200 on a monthly basis, and then inflation is rising every month by, let's say, 2%, right? That means by every month the money which you have loses its power by 2%. And if you do not have a strategy to curb inflation, at the end of the day you're going to see that if your income doesn't change, your purchasing power is going to drop. And as a result, if your budget does not change, it's going to basically fail, because you are not growing and the economy is changing, and your personal financial system is not shielding you from the changing economy. So you need to be able to understand, not only yourself, but the environment in which you exist as a financial entity, the environment in which you exist, your situation, your environment, your home, your community. Understand the economy of not only your city, understand the economy of your company or of your business, understand also the economy of your country, right? Because these are the things that are going to affect your own financial being, your financial well-being, and you as a financial entity. The next thing we're looking at is the expectation. So what do you want to achieve, right? So remember, when we're looking at why budgets fail, we said one of the reasons why some people's budgeting doesn't achieve what is not consistent or fails in the long run is because they set it up without any particular aim or purpose in mind. There must be an expectation. What do you want to expect, or what do you expect to achieve by starting this budgeting? Do you want to save more money? Do you want to reduce debt? Do you want to build an emergency fund? Do you want to invest money? Do you want to save money to be able to curb inflation, so that maybe by the end of the year or in 2-3 years time, no matter how high the interest rate is, no matter how high inflation has gotten up into your country, you're going to be safe? There are some countries which you can call case studies where inflation has increased over the years to very very high to a very very high level consistently. The country of Nigeria in Africa is a country where for the past 3 to 4 years its inflation has risen on a consistent basis. And if you want to see this, you can check on the historical data for its exchange rate against the dollar. You would see how that graph has been fluctuating and growing on a consistent basis from year to year. And these are things which are affecting financial people or financial beings and entities within the country, within the economy of Nigeria, right? Another country which has also experienced an upward shift in its inflation, and as a result of this, its currency has lost its power, is the nation of Turkey, where we see its home currency, the Turkish lira, due to interest rates and I don't know what I would say, maybe the unfavorable central bank policies. The inflation in the country has been high, um, and has been on an upward trend for the last 4 years. And you see the exchange rate at the beginning of the year and at the closing of the year is always different, and it tends to always be higher, right? So you should be able to budget, to be able to shield yourself from some of these things, so that irrespective of what's happening in the country, irrespective of what's happening in the economy, you're doing fine. Maybe you could be looking at an economy which is beyond your country. For example, you might be in the EU, and one thing which you have to consider is the economy of the EU as a whole, because the EU, although it's made up of member states, yet they function as a bloc, and the economy of the EU definitely affects the economy of its member states. So those are some of the things which you have to consider in your budgeting now, depending on the level at which you are in your own financial journey, right? Look at the action. So what specific behaviors do you need to change, or what specific behaviors and actions do you need to put into place to be able to achieve this budgeting? Maybe, for example, let's say you want to budget to save more money. You could stop eating outside, and then maybe, for example, you stop impulse spending, right? Because basically the reason why we are creating budget is to be able to manage our finances, right? But our finances are heavily influenced and projected or directed and led by our daily actions. And if your actions are not in the right manner, or they are not pro financial actions, then at the end of the day, you may have a right budget, you may have the right system, but your actions are still going to lead you to financial ruin and financial downturn. So you need to be able to also identify those actions, right? Now, if you cannot identify the actions, you can ask the AI agent, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or it's Grok, to be able to, recommend possible actions that you should incorporate into your daily workflow in order to save more money, or in order to achieve your goal, whether it's to save more money, to cut down costs, to get more from your paycheck, or maybe to invest more, or whatever your particular goal may be. And then finally, you have a review, right? You need to be able to measure whether your budgeting system is achieving its goals. So R is reviewing and evaluation, right? So you evaluate, you review, and then if there is need for change, then you rebuild, right? This whole thing is a cycle because, like I said, your financial system has to be a breathable system. It cannot be a rigid system. You must be able to respond to changes in the environment. You must be able to respond to changes in your own lifestyle and changes that would affect your financial reality. So those are things which you have to consider. Remember, our prompt framework is the CLARE framework. C for context, the context of your financial situation. L for limits, the things that could affect your financial situation and your financial budgeting. E for expectation, what are you budgeting towards, or what goal do you hope to achieve with your budget. A for actions, the actions which you have to take as a result of your budget. And then R for review, right? That's our prompting framework. Now let's look at examples. So we're going to look at this prompt, which is our first example of a good prompt. So we have, I'm a uni student earning, there's a typo there. I'm just catching that now, but no problem. I'm a uni student earning $900 monthly from part-time work. My fixed expenses are 550 USD. I spend around $220 on food and $80 on transport monthly. I have a $1,200 debt and want to pay it off in 6 months while saving at least $1,000 this year. I cannot reduce my rent and my income sometimes fluctuates slightly. I struggle with impulse food spending and online shopping. Create a realistic monthly budget plan, suggest specific behavior changes, and design a weekly review system to help me stay accountable. Now this is amazing because it just walks right into our prompt, and it utilizes the prompt effect, our CLARE framework effectively. This user has adequately painted his our context to the AI agent, has stated the limitations which he's experiencing, has provided his expectation, and has also instructed the AI agent to recommend actions which he could take in order to help him maintain his budgeting goal, and then also a possible reviewing system, so that at the end of the day he can from time to time review his actions and his budgeting to ensure that he's actually on par with his goal, and at the end of the day he's going to achieve that goal. So let's go over the prompt once again. I'm a uni student earning $900 monthly from part work, right? That's his context. My fixed expenses are $550, which is still part of the context. I spend around $220 on food and $80 on transport monthly. I have a $1,200 debt I want to pay off in 6 months, right? So the agent is already understanding what are the basics of this person's situation. He needs to prioritize paying off this debt, and then he also needs to prioritize saving. So what are also some of the other things which he can do? Maybe he can cut down on food and cut down on other expenses. And he also has to take in mind that this person's financial income fluctuates monthly, from a monthly to monthly basis slightly. Maybe he can earn 900 this month, next month he can earn 1,000. Maybe the month after that he can earn maybe 850, just depending on how maybe his business is for that month. So this is an example of a great prompt. Let's see another example of a great prompt. You see, I earn $3,500 per month and live in Kigali. My fixed expenses are $1,800, including rent, school fees for my children, and utilities. I spend about $600 on food and transport. I currently saving consistently and want to build a 6-month emergency fund within 18 months. I cannot change my children's school fees, but I can reduce lifestyle spending. I tend to overspend during social events, right? Create a structured 50-30-20 based budget, recommended specific areas to cut back, and suggest a monthly review system with tracking metrics. This is also a great prompt. We're going to talk a little bit about the 50-30-20 rule of budgeting. The 50-30-20 rule of budgeting states that 50% of your income goes into expenses. 50% of your income goes into your expenses. 30% of your income goes into savings, and then 20% of your income goes into I think once, I might be getting this wrong, but anyhow, we are going to look at this later in the live prompting session. We are going to look at this later in the live prompting session, so don't be bothered about that. But we are going to consider the 50 30 20 rule, and look at the various compartments of the 50 10 20 rule, and you can basically adjust that to fit your own personal use case and whatever, you know, whatever is your own personal financial structure. Now let's look at some bad prompts. We have bad prompt 1 and bad prompt 2. So the first one we have here: help me create a budget, I want to save more money. Help me create a budget, I want to save more money. So why this particular prompt fails? Number one, there's no income, no expenses, no goal timeline, no constraints, no behavior details, no review requests. AI has nothing concrete to work with. So basically, it's like you're just creating a fictional character and like, help me create a budget, I want to save money. There's no context there. AI can do almost nothing. Some AI agents would prompt you and ask you a question in return. Could you please provide me answers to the following questions so that I can better, respond to your initial question, right? Some will do that because this prompt does not contain the adequate information in order for the AI agent to generate a valid, credible budgeting system. The next bad prompt we have here: I earn some money monthly and spend a lot. Make me a strict budget so I can become rich fast. So why it fails? We have some money. Some money is vague. Spend a lot is vague. Become rich fast is unrealistic. No constraints, no behavioral insights, no review system. It invites unrealistic advice, right? One thing which I would like to advise my listeners today is the way in which you build wealth and the way in which you succeed in life is through repeated intentional actions on a daily basis, right? Maybe that action could be in the form of you saving $5 every month, maybe saving $2 every month. I'm even talking about on a monthly basis. Maybe it could be you saving $2 every day or saving $2 every week repeatedly. Once you can do that thing repeatedly every single day, that's how you're able to increase your wealth and then change your level from time to time. Of course, there are going to be people who can do one massive action and then they get rich, or they increase their financial level and succeed. Now that happens, but that does not happen to everybody. It happens to quite a few number of people, and to the rest of the people out there who don't experience this, what do they have to do? They have to invest in daily recurrent intentional actions, which these actions are going to be the backbone and the core of their financial system and their wealth building process. That way, I've heard of a story of a young man who, by saving a small amount of money every day, was able to get a net worth of over $500, I believe $500 to $1 million in a period of about 10 years because of his consistent action of saving, right? There's another person who did the consistent action of investing $200 every month into the stock market. $200 every month to the stock market. In about 2 years, was able to increase his personal wealth from wherever it was to about $400,000. So it is repeated daily intentional actions that count when it comes to wealth generation, right? It's not you waking up and doing one crazy investment one day that's going to give you so much money, right? Life is not a gamble. What's the AI mindset for today? Use AI proactively as an architect, right? So our intention today is to see how we can use AI proactively as like an architect rather than using it, reactively. You use now there are so many areas in your life where you can definitely use AI, and there are areas in your life where you need to use AI in a reactive manner, right? But when it comes to important aspects of your life, issues like finances and budgeting, I would advise that you use AI as a proactive tool, to plan and to build and to raise up a system that is going to support your financial goals and your financial aspirations, so that you are not going to basically react. For example, let's say AI was available since 2018 and somebody was able to utilize AI to build a system, a budget and plan an expense tracking system, and he was able to stick to it, you know, for let's say 2 years. I believe when COVID-19 came, that person would have been far much more better than the next person, because in the 2 year period where he did not go to work, he would have been able to eat, would have been able to cover his expenses. So many people in many Western countries or in many places in the world rely too much on the government, in my opinion. They're expecting handouts from the government when times get hard. Maybe they're expecting some sort of assistance because they lost their job. They're expecting some sort of assistance because of difficult situation. Now, don't get me wrong, these things are valid, right? But don't sit down expecting the government to do these things for you. Because they are doing it today doesn't mean they're going to do it tomorrow. And if you sit down reliant on the government, it gives you a kind of like dependent mindset. And at the end of the day, when the push comes to shove, you may not be able to take on the right mindset to do what is right, to be able to get yourself back, on your feet. And when you become dependent on an entity like the government, or when you become dependent on another person, maybe a financial guru, an uncle, or whoever it may be, at the end of the day, you become some sort of a slave to that person, because you cannot generate wealth and income for yourself outside of that person. And as a result, you need that person to survive, and you kind of like become, kind of like a slave to that person, whereby at the end of the day, you'll be forced to do whatever thing the person wants you to do just because you need money, right? That's very, very wrong, and it's very, very bad. Don't allow people to have that upper hand, over your own personal life, by becoming financially independent and learning to build your own financial system that will work for you, to achieve your own specific financial goals, right? So let's walk through our coding, our live prompt walkthrough. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to start with the first example here. Today, I'm just going to copy the example which we had in the lesson, and then I'm going to work with that example and just paste that into the AI. And then now let's remember what the example is, right? I'm a university student living and earning $900 monthly from part-time work. My fixed expenses is $550. I spend around $220 on food and $80 on transport monthly. I have a $1,200 debt, and I want to pay it off in 6 months while saving at least $1,000 this year. I cannot reduce my rent, right? And my income sometimes fluctuates slightly. I struggle with impulse food spending and online shopping. Create a realistic monthly budget plan. Suggest specific behavior changes and design a weekly review system to help me stay accountable. Now, this is a great prompt. Now, we are going to look at the results of this prompt, and then we are now going to look at how we can get a prompt like this using the AI by just basically painting a picture and then prompting the AI agent to use the clear framework to be able to rewrite our prompt into in a better version, in a better draft, basically one that is going to get us better results. And we're also going to look at generating it in various formats, because this format would not be the best format for productivity. Maybe we can look at generating an Excel format and so on and so forth. But anyhow, let's not put ourselves before the shadow, but let's just go on. Let's see. Great, you actually get enough detail to build a real working system, not just a generic budget. Let's do this step by step and make sure it's mathematically realistic and good behavior proof. First, reality check. Numbers. Income 900, fixed expenses, it covers that. Food 220, transport 80, current total spending 850, leftover $50, right? That means right now you're surviving, not progressing. We need to reallocate, not magically invent money. Your goal: pay off 1,200 debt in 6 months, which means 200 a month, and say 1,000 this year, which means about $85 a month. Total goal requirement $285, which you need to set apart from your expenses or from your income in a month. So we can create it's $285 for intentional margin, right? This will require tighter food control, spending guardrails, structured cash flow, and slightly variable buffer planning. Now, the reason why I like this is because the fact that you've been able to state your goal it gives the AI agent the ceiling with which it needs to work with your own specific use case, right? If you're earning more money, the ceiling may be higher, right, or maybe lower, or maybe lower. But the ceiling in our case is this person, because of his goal and his specific needs, he needs to be able to set aside $285 on a monthly basis, right? He needs to be able to $285 on a monthly basis. So there are other things which he is going to have to prioritize, and other things which are going to go down in the ladder of priority in order for him to achieve this. Let's look at the recommendation. We have a realistic monthly budget plan. Food fixed expenses 550, non-negotiable. Food 160. The guy before spent 220 on food, right? But now in the new plan, the food has been reduced to 160, reduced with structure. Transport 80. Transportation is fixed, right? And sometimes it does not depend on the individual. Maybe you're using public transport, or maybe you're using a vehicle where you have to buy gas and things like that. That doesn't most of the time depend on you. The price of transportation. Debt pay off 200 monthly within 6 months, and then savings $85 annually, right, in order to achieve 1,200 in the first year. Personal fund 40, controlled guilt-free money. The reason why this is really important is because human beings are not robots. Human beings are not machines. You cannot lock a human being in a financial cage and expect him to, you know, to continue and to survive. Now there are people who can definitely discipline themselves to that point where there is no allowance for personal fun, there is no allowance for anything outside of their needs and their necessities. But you should not work for money and then at the end of the day you pay all your bills and then you don't have time for yourself. Your money should be able to take care of the person who worked for the money beyond your necessary expenses. Have fun, go and do some things which are fun, right? Don't do only the necessary things, but you should budget for that particular activity, budget for that particular exercise, right? And then we have a buffer. Recover through behavioral shift. This buffer here is against rainy days, right? This is very important, especially for a student, right? Buffer is very important against rainy days. Now let's do a calculation of this amount of money and see whether it's going to give us our total. We have 550 plus 160 plus 200 plus 80 plus 85 plus 40. How much is that? All right, it seems to be a little bit above our budget. Let's do that again and see whether it works, right? Let's see whether it works. 550 plus 160 plus 80 plus 200. How many is that? That is already 990. And then I seem to be a little bit confused. Let me just do this. 550 plus 160 plus 80 plus 200 plus 85. That's a total of 1,075. Then adding the $40 extra, so we have a total of 1,115, right? Now we are going to see if the AI does actually account for this in its explanation, but let's just have that in mind that it has definitely expanded on the in the expense section, and it has basically written the total amount. Basically, when you calculate everything, is beyond the monthly income which you included in the prompt. But let's go ahead and see if it's going to definitely account for this. It says we must cut $60 from food plus stop sports impulse spending. Now this buffer here, you're going to recover this after you pay off the debt after the 6 months, but you can definitely ask about this. But anyhow, let's just keep on. We must cut $60 from food plus stop impulse spending plus redirect leaks, right? But we also need a cash flow system, not just list. Cash flow system, envelope method, modern version. When income arrives, right? Immediately split the money. Debt 200 locked away, savings 85, auto transfer, fixed bills 550, transportation 80, right? So if we do that, let's see how much is going to be left. We're going to be left with, so take 200 for the debt plus 85 for savings plus 550, for fixed bills. That's already 835. Then plus 80, that's already 915, and then plus 40 for food on the weekly basis. Now once you take 40 for food on the weekly basis, you're already at 955. That is for the just with the money of food for just 1 week, right? And there are still 3 weeks in a month, so there's definitely going to be some adjustment that would need to be done. But I think the reason why I did this was because in the prompt we stated that the income fluctuates slightly, from month to month. So maybe a month can come where this person earns less or he earns more. So maybe that's why the AI decided to um, break it down this way. But after this calculation, where we see that the total budget breakdown is actually exceeds the monthly income, at least that was stated in the prompt, we can ask you to recalculate everything to make sure it stays within the budget line, right? Weekly structure prevents end of month chaos. You're not budgeting monthly, you're living week to week. I like this cash flow system. This way you don't, you prioritize the spending in the right order. It's really, really great, and it does not penalize you. For example, it just helps you to lock in your budgeting goals and then do that on a monthly basis, right? It does not penalize you whereby maybe you receive your money and then immediately maybe you just go and spend on food. You have to follow your cash flow system. Food spending fixed. Impulse food spending is emotional plus convenience driven, right? So it's giving some behavioral changes recommendation here. And grocery only once per week, no midweek food shopping except for emergencies. Eat before shopping rule, never shop hungry. Repeat cheap meals to reduce decisions. So this is also another great recommendation, in my opinion. Repeating cheap meals. Cash only foods, withdraw weekly $40 in cash. When it's gone, right? This creates friction. Online shopping defense. Impulse shopping is dopamine problem, not a money problem. Install this guardrails. 48-hour rule. No purchase under emotional state, right? Add to cart, wait for 2 days. This is a great rule. I learned this from a financial guru online, who made this statement that when his children wanted to buy something and they saw something and they were so excited to get it, he told them to wait for 2 days. And if after 2 days you still want to get that thing, then we can go get it, right? So it's a good thing to really help you combat impulse buying. If you see something which you want to buy, wait for 2 days, right? Now if you're physically in a store and you see a product which is on sale which you want to buy, just tell yourself, I don't have the money for that, and move on, right? Because if it's online, then this can definitely work. But if it's in front of you, especially when it's on sale where there's a discount, you may be tempted to just grab it and then pay. But you know that if you're grabbing that, then maybe that's going to cost you food for 2 days. Or if you're purchasing that, that's going to cost you food for a week, right? Just remember that you are working with the budget. We have on installing shopping apps that says, yes, seriously, browser only purchases slow you down. Browser only purchases slow you down. This, I have not fully understood this, but anyhow, it says browser only purchases slow you down. How do browser only purchases slow you down? I don't get it. No midnight spending, nothing financial after 9 p.m. Impulse spending leaves at night. Weekly review system. So this is his weekly review system, right? We can definitely prompt it, and then now we now have the, let's look at this income fluctuation safety net. Because your income varies, when income is greater than this is definitely what I wanted it to do. This is definitely what I wanted it to do. It says when income is greater than 900, 50% goes on debt, 30% goes on saving, 20% covers personal, right? This accelerates growth without life creeps. Simple monthly structure: survival 630, food 160, future 285, fund 40. Every dollar aside, no floating money. So basically, this is a good system, right? But we can definitely inform the AI agent that on calculation, we can see that the total amount of money here seems to exceed the the monthly income of $900, right? And you can definitely do that. I don't want to go and start doing that. It's gonna make the video to be very long, quite long, and the other things which we need to cover. So I'm going to leave that the way it is. From watching the other videos, you would know how to definitely respond to the AI agent and prompt it to get follow-ups on the situation you have in front of you and make it more favorable. Right now, I'm just going to start a new chat, right? And then we're going to use the example from the second. I'm going to use the second example. I earn 3,500 per month and live in Kigali. My fixed expenses are, now we already have this. I'm just gonna turn this into a basic prompt. I earn $3,500 monthly and spend let's say $2,300 monthly, right? Help me build a budgeting system with the aim of building an emergency fund within 6 months, and also the aim of building an emergency fund within 6 months, and also combating inflation while I invest. So this is a prompt anyway, which is just not so much effort was put into this prompt. So I'm just going to ask AI to use the clear framework and then edit this prompt, and then we're now going to see what we can do. So using the clear framework, edit this prompt and make it better, right? So let's define, we have context, L is, we have limits, comma, E is expectation, A is action, and then finally R. So we have C for context, L for limit, E for expectation, A for action. What was R about? Let's quickly go and then check what R was about in our prompt. R was about review, right? So we're just going to put review system. So using the clear framework, edit this prompt and make it better, right? Now let's see what we are going to get as a result of this. You see, here's a stronger, more precise version of your prompt using the clear framework designed to get high quality financial plan from an AI. So it says I earn 3,500 per month after tax and currently spend about 2,300 per month on living expenses. I want to build a structured budgeting and financial system that allows me to create fully funded emergency fund within 6 months while also investing in a way that protects my money from inflation. Assume my income is stable. I have no major debts. I am not a beginner. I am a beginner to intermediate investor with moderate risk tolerance. Do not suggest unrealistic cuts that will reduce my quality of life drastically. Keep the system practical and sustainable. Now, by the way, you can definitely edit these things. Like, remember in the previous class, I showed you how you could definitely do this. Just copy it and then come down in the chat and then you just edit it as you would like it to be. We've done that already. Action: design a 6 months plan that shows how much to allocate to expenses, savings, and investments each month. Recommend action structure, automation strategies, beginner friendly investment vehicles, include a simple monthly budget. Review: add a system for tracking progress monthly, adjusting the plan if income or expense changes, and maintaining discipline long term, including specific review and checkpoints and metrics I should monitor. So this is now look at what the AI agent is asking. If you want, I can now run this improve prompt and generate the full budgeting system for you. So basically it's asking to do the work which we want it to do. So let's just say yes, and then we see what we it's going to get for us, right? Now, when it comes to financial budget making and budget tracking and all of this, you always have to make sure you cross-check the information the AI agent gives you to make sure it ticks out, right? Make sure its calculation checks out, and then if the calculation does not check out, like in our previous version, you have to basically ask it, right? I told you I earn so and so amount of money on a monthly basis. Why does it seem that your calculation puts me at receiving XYZ amount on a monthly basis instead, right? You have to make sure that this thing is realistic and it aligns with the prompt, right? Sometimes AI may do something which is wrong, or it may do something which is not in the context, right? Remember, we did not use a persona in this case, so if it fluctuates or goes out of context, you should not be surprised, right? Personas is something which you have to use from time to time. It's really, really necessary. But let's see what we get. Your 6-month budgeting and inflation resistant investment system. Step 1, core financial snapshot. Monthly income 3,500, monthly expenses 2,300, available surplus 1,200, 6 months emergency fund target. We have this, and then it basically spells out everything, basically. But one thing I want to do is I want to turn this into an Excel sheet, right, with all the right information, something I can use on a daily basis, right? So I'm basically going to ask this, right, turn this information into a ready to use Excel template. I'm going to do this, not an Excel file. I don't want an Excel file, I just want an Excel template, right? Not an Excel file. And to an Excel template ready to copy and paste, comma, for daily finance tracking while maintaining all the goals. I'm maintaining all the financial goals. I'm maintaining all the financial goals and limitations. I want to be able to log daily expenses and have the sheet automatically calculate Excel. Well, I'm just gonna redact this. So it says I want to be able to log expenses and have the sheet automatically calculate necessary values, and I'm just going to end there, right? Basically there's so much more we can do, but let me just end there and then we see what it's going to do. Right now I'm realizing that if I say copy and paste, it may not work, right? But I'm going to, because is with this version it's going to just output a simple, maybe a simple, maybe a complex table. But I want to see what it's going to do with this, right? Before then I'm going to ask it to build me before I'm going to ask it to build me something else. So let's see this. So we have our design this as a copy and paste Excel template layout with formulas. You pass each section into Excel and it will calculate daily expense, logging, monthly totals, emergency fund tracking, investment tracking, goal progress, budget limits, warning, savings, rate trackings, and all of that. So we have this. Oh, so we have sheet 1. We have this for sheet 1, and it's basically giving you what to do. I'm just going to ask you to combine this all into an Excel file. I don't want to be manually copying and pasting all of this. Combine all of this into a single Excel file, maintaining the structure. Right, let's do that and then see what we are going to get. Now I don't like when it does this. Sometimes it does this. Let's see what we want. So I can add automatic charts, paste version. All right, generate an Excel file that maintains this information and structure, right? So let's see what we get. So basically, yeah, this is what I wanted. Sometimes you have to change your keywords, because today I was looking at it generating a file, right? So sometimes you have to change your keywords, and rather than saying produce, you have to ask it to generate, especially when you're looking at files, right? So you have to change your keywords sometimes. So let's just click on this and then download it. Click on the download button so that we can download this and then we can look at it in Excel. I don't know why it's taking so long to download anyway. Maybe the file system is taking some time to be processed and all of this. All right, so it's been downloaded. I'm going to open it up. So we can look at this. Just give me a moment. So let's look at this on the screen. Let's see. Oh, no, this is not what I want. Let's see. Okay, let's do this again. All right, so yeah, we have this. So where is that screen? All right, so we have this. So this is the document the AI agent created. Wow, this is not what I expected it to do. The document is quite rudimentary, and it does not have the necessary tabs which it's supposed to have, right? So but there are ways for us to be able to achieve the right structure and just make sure we have the right thing by prompting it. That's why sometimes, rather than asking it to generate a file, I prefer to ask it to generate in a format that is ready to copy and paste, because that way it's better. You can do it manually and then you can avoid all the hassle of it doing things wrongly, right? So we are going to end here for today. We are definitely going to end here for today, but I'm going to do a follow-up video on this same topic where we're going to build a full system from start to finish using only AI, and then we're going to see how to achieve that, right? So just stay tuned and watch out for that video, right? So this has been the 14-day AI challenge with your host, Engineer Victory. Thank you very much for staying with me up to this point. See you at day 11. Bye bye.